Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. I am still very upset about the Sandra Bland case. So tonight, it's all about Sandra Bland. I have my very good friend, great lawyer, sorority sister, because it's Delta Convention Week.
That's right.
In Houston, with me, Miss Teana Watson, Miss Fort Bend lawyer extraordinaire. And I also have a great, brilliant young lawyer, my former student in the 90s. I'm still taking credit for his brilliance, but he's brilliant on his own, Mr. Darrell Jordan. And Darrell has also gotten appointed as independent to the Independent Oversight Committee by the DA in Waller County, Mr. Elton Mathis. And so we're very proud of Darrell for heading up the Independent Oversight Committee. We believe that he will be independent and fair and impartial in his evaluation of what happened, and hopefully fearless. And let's wrap our prayers around him, our arms around him, and make sure he's protected in seeking justice for Sandra Bland. So we're all emotional about Sandra Bland. We know as black women and black men and white women, but particularly black women, that could have been us, because she sounds like a feisty black woman when she is being stopped. And although most of us practice what we preach with police officers and are extremely respectful, she seemed like she was having a bad day. And people are allowed to have bad days. My beginning commentary is going to be that there are a lot of professions in which you have to be thick-skinned. You can't retaliate. There are jobs in which you are cussed out, talked about, and you have to rise above it. Being a criminal defense lawyer is one of them. We get talked to ugly every day by prosecutors who are half our age, who have never had our urban experience, and we're talked about bad like it's our clients or us. They impute their possibly criminal behavior onto us, tell us our clients ain't SHIT. They tell them that they ain't nothing, they ain't this, they ain't that, and we have to endure that. Prosecutors who are snobby ignore us. They play on the computer. They do what they want to do, and we have to take it because we do not want them to get angry with us or say something ugly to them, and then they take that out on the way they prosecute our clients. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree totally.
Wouldn't you agree, Darrell?
Totally.
And so police officers are a job similar to us. You have to be thick-skinned to do that. There are going to be people who are having bad days, just like police officers have bad days. I've been stopped by cops who are having a bad day, and I certainly don't try not to do anything to infuse their anger even more. So people have bad days. It is so insulting to me that people have taken the opinion that she was disrespectful and belligerent. I had the good fortune to be on Melanie Lawson's talk show last week, Crossroads, and our Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, was on, and he was saying that they had studied it to see if it was racial profiling, and that that officer had stopped a black female earlier that day, and the lady was polite and he was polite to say that there was not racial profiling. But let's just say something else. I understand that that's a good start, and thank you for doing that, Dan Patrick, and saying that. But what we would really like to see is how would that officer act with a belligerent white female? Will a belligerent white motorist or a white female motorist who's having a bad day by that same officer be pulled out of the car, told to put her cigarette out, taken from it, hit or whatever was done to her and charged and put in jail like that? That's what I would want to know from what I saw. So we have a lot of questions about that. We have a lot of policies that need to be changed. But right now, our first 45 minutes, we're just going to vent. So Teana, let you vent.
Thank you, Vivian. I want to start off from the legal perspective and say the United States Supreme Court, we don't have a lot of black letter law, bright line rules when it comes to civil rights in this country. But the U.S. Supreme Court said for a traffic stop, after the purpose of the stop has ended, the traffic stop is complete. You cannot prolong it. And at the time he gave her the citation, be it a warning or a traffic ticket to come back, the purpose of the stop ended. He had no right to prolong it anymore and ask her to put out her cigarette, ask her to get out the car, or anything. There was no probable cause to further that detention. We have a Fourth Amendment in this country, and it is clear. The purpose of it is for citizens, for people in this country to be protected from illegal searches and seizures and detentions and stops from police officers. And I would like for more of these constitutional conservatives and constructionists and people who are real strong about the Constitution and making sure that it's not amended and changed, stand up for this young woman, and that you actually should be able to ask, why do I have to put out my cigarette? In America, the land of the free and the brave. And it should not be an issue of an attitude. It should be an issue of a right as a citizen. Where do the citizens' rights begin? Where do they end? The police officer having a bad day, unfortunately, can end in death. Okay, now in this case, it did not for her at that time. But the police officer has the power, if he's having a bad day, to put you in jail. Police officer having a bad day have a lot of power to do something to a citizen. A citizen having a bad day doesn't have that power.
Right.
So they have to really abide by the Constitution. And I would like to hear more constitutional scholars talk about this case, because I believe that her rights were not protected as a citizen of this great country. And being able to really wander around, mingle, and drive freely. To be able to be free. That's what America's all about to me.
And one of the important points that you're talking about is the Constitution and the right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures, from unreasonable intrusions. And we have a new United States Supreme Court case, the Rodriguez case,
Exactly.
that talks about that this year. And so the law is on a motorist's side if they're not breaking any other laws other than the traffic citation. The officer had a right to ask her to put her cigarette out, but she had a right to say no. And that's the part officers have to be trained in. What is a lawful command, and what is a request, a consensual request?
Sure.
And that was a consensual encounter by all definitions of the Constitution,
Right.
and she did not consent to it.
Exactly.
She did not consent to that part of the encounter. And so that's what we need to start talking about a little bit more. And I agree with you, our constitutional conservatives will go crazy over the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms, even though they know that the right to bear arms was grounded in being our own militia against Great Britain. It was not against being the militia against each other. However, that's the way the constitutional conservatives have bent it and slanted it. But what about bending and slanting the Constitution in favor of citizens with the Fourth Amendment? What take do you have on that, Darrell?
I have two major issues. One is the lack of equality when you're stopped. It's almost similar to when I was a child and I would get a spanking and my parents would say, "Do you have anything to say?" Well, I knew if I wanted the spanking to end, the correct answer was no, I'm sorry, or apologize for whatever I did. I'd never do it again, and go on and go to bed. But unfortunately, when an officer engages you, or they say, well, I said you were speeding, you were going 75, how fast were you going? And you may want to start a conversation, well, I was only going 68, I have it on cruise control. And then an argument ensues, and you can go back and forth, but you're never on the same setting or same footing as that officer, and that could lead to you being arrested or lead to you getting more traffic citations. And so I don't agree with the way it's set up, that we are not equal and we shouldn't be able to state our opinions when asked. But unfortunately, that's the way it is. And until we get some of these politicians, especially those who stood up at the press conference a week or two ago, to stand up for the equal treatment of people accused of crimes or who are given tickets, we're going to continue to have problems, because those in control will continue to do the things that they've been doing. And when I look at the stop of Sandra Bland and how she was treated by the officer, I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, it was a 5. I have clients who come into my office with black eyes, knots on their head. You have the young gentleman up in Baltimore who had the bumpy ride and was killed. You have the gentleman in South Carolina who was shot in the back. And so just to be body slammed, and as a criminal lawyer, I'm telling you, just to be body slammed is not that bad.
Let me
compared
stop you,
to how
Darrell.
people are treated.
Let me stop you, Darrell. I was gonna let you talk, but she's a woman, so let's make that distinction. We've seen two egregious acts on camera with police officers and women. The little teenage girl in the yellow bikini had like a 250-pound man on a 100-pound child, slammed her face into the grass. You have a daughter, right?
Absolutely.
Would you ever slam her face into the ground and put your knees in her back?
Well, I do represent 3 people out of McKinney, so.
But I'm just saying, but would you do that to your own child?
No, but
and would you want a man who doesn't even know your child to reprimand your child in that way?
I don't agree.
No,
But
that's not
what
what
they do.
But I'm not. Well, that's not the question. We're going to leave that part different. I'm just asking you as a father, would you want someone to treat your
Absolutely
child
not.
that way?
Absolutely
And so I'm not talking about the equal treatment or unequal treatment. I'm just saying that woman and Sandra Bland are a little bit exceptions right now with videos because most of it is black male. So I think it becomes a little bit more disheartening when a grown man, because I can tell you that McKinney police officer would not want you to just take his daughter from a sitting position and pick his white daughter up and put her on the ground like that. He would not want that. He would want to come beat you up for doing that because that's assaulting a minor. So my issue is we do have clients that are treated badly, but and it's unjustified. But I think what's killing a lot of us is the way these women are being treated because, and let me just say that and let you finish.
Well, I'll go back to last week, and not one word was said about this. Constable Precinct 4 viciously punched a 15-year-old child repeatedly, and not one word by anyone was mentioned. They came out and said it was justified and moved on about their business.
I haven't seen it. I didn't know about it.
Well, the 15-year-old, they said, was wrestling with a female officer. Then the male came and backed her up, and he's on tape sitting there. He's just unloading on her. And so I'm not
unloading on the 15-year-old female?
on the 15-year-old female.
Wow.
And the same night, the officer, whoever the constable for Precinct 4 came out and said he was justified and backed up the officer. I don't agree. I don't think they should put their hands on anybody where it's unwarranted. Body slamming somebody for a traffic stop or stealing something from Target, I don't think is warranted. Even tasing somebody in those situations. There was a 75, 72-year-old white woman that was tased in Austin a couple years ago for being mouthy. And so until we get some elected officials, some police chiefs, some constables who come out and say we are changing our policies, this type of force will not be supported, and if you do it, you will be off the force, you will be reprimanded, then it's never going to change.
And let's keep this in mind. DPS's policy is to be courteous to motorists. And it's, I mean, that is part of their policy. And so that's different from other law enforcement agencies in Texas, is to be courteous. That means DPS tried to be the creme de la creme of law enforcement. Sure. We're not going to be ghetto-fied or emotional. We're going to stand above, kind of like the military. We're going to be, the proud, the DPS. And that's what's really disappointing about DPS. And I don't think that their police chief supported them because they know that they're supposed to be courteous. And that means in the wake of people being discourteous to you. It's not like only be courteous if someone's being courteous to you. It means be courteous, period. Because if your mannerism is courteous with someone and they're having a bad day, they know that if they're giving someone a ticket, they're stopping them from going to their destination. Most people are late. There was a time when officers used to say, is there an emergency? Mm-hmm. Because they cared about, they were taught to say that. Just like we say, may it pleases the court. They were taught to say, is there an emergency? Because they were here to serve and protect. Now, most people believe that the Sandra Bland failure to signal lane change was because the officer jumped up behind her too quickly. And I have prosecuted traffic tickets before in Precinct 4 in the Harris County District Attorney's Office, and there are exceptions, just like in other parts of the law. If there's no opportunity, if there's an emergency, you don't have to signal lane change.
Exactly.
And so just for that citation, had she gotten it, if he'd have given it to her, because he said he was going to give her a warning, she would have beat that case because the law says with his own video dash cam,
that's right.
That's not a warranted ticket, because if there is an exception to it, you don't have to do it. You can speed under exceptional situations. There's a caveat in the traffic code under common law, just like there is in the penal code.
Sure.
So that's what we need to talk about also. He was wrong for that.
Correct. And a lot of traffic laws, it says the caveat, when unsafe.
When unsafe, exactly.
And so, you know, in that case here again, that would be a fact question for a judge or jury to decide.
Right. And at that moment, he could decide that. What was she doing? I mean,
Right.
Let's take a quick call. Caller, I see that there's a caller on the line. Please talk to us.
Hello, good show.
Thank you.
Y'all must have heard of suicides in and around the justice system before.
Yes, sir, we
Yes.
have. Probably it happens to people that really aren't criminals, and they're just horrified or whatever, and a switch is thrown, and it's like they have no choice but to commit suicide. If you can, justify or wrap your head around these type of things. I called for your discussion of the DPS. It's not the same DPS that we all know and loved. Yes, you have, like Rob Fickman mentioned, they have a hard-earned good reputation, but they're not the same DPS lately, because you had the governor in his inauguration mentioned something about the $800 million border initiative. God only knows what that is. I think it has something to do with drugs. And also new hiring standards at the DPS. That's not all. I mean, the DPS won't answer any questions. Apparently, they don't have a spokesman. They can't tell you why there's a DPS number on your controlled substance prescription now. It's not just a federal policy. They're the enforcers. When the doctor gives you a urine analysis to detect they're only looking for marijuana. They don't care about your X-rays or MRI. They care about the presence of the purity of essence of your urine, or else you won't get a prescription. You won't get a Band-Aid. So, yeah, we have to keep our eye on the formally dependable DPS, because they have all these new duties that their border initiative. Okay, they said they're not going to be arrested.
Oh, let me tell you, that border initiative, sir, is about illegal aliens coming across, because I'm working on a few drug cases in McAllen, and the DPS troopers helping with the feds and the DEA are actually have been reassigned. They're coming from like College Station and different areas like that. They're going down to the McAllen and the border, and they're doing heavy patrolling to make sure that people don't come across the border. I mean, lots and lots. And they've been doing that for about 2 years. So that's what that's all about. It's all about illegal aliens coming across the border. And the DPS is controlling our prescriptions. So if we have a client with a prescription for a drug, now our Texas Health and Safety Code says that if you have a prescription, that's an absolute defense to, say, like having hydrocodone or syrup or whatever these kids do. And so even if our clients produce a prescription, they'll say, well, we're going to check DPS's online drug log or something. So DPS is monitoring that. So I guess when doctors are writing prescriptions, they used to call it triplicate, and the third copy went to DPS. So they do put that in a database, and they keep up with that at all times. We appreciate your call, and keep watching, and call us back if something else.
Could I just say about the DPS and the medical stuff, it's none of their business. Thank you, good show.
I do agree. It's a HIPAA violation, and it's not their thing. One of the things I want to touch on and change the subject a little bit when it deals with Sandra Bland is we don't know if it was a suicide or not. We're not trying to stop that, but we do know that people are depressed and have mental health issues or depression. So it's just unfortunate that trying to move over for a police officer, and so obviously it would have been unsafe for her to wait and think to put a signal on when you're trying to get out of someone's way, turns into being body slammed by a man. I mean, that's nothing to people who listen to it because you've never been body slammed. That's a big deal to be body slammed. I mean, just think about just at our age, just tripping over a wire at your house and busting your knee or something like that. I mean, and for somebody that has stopped you, that you're paying their salary for as a taxpayer, to just body slam you or body slam your kid, I mean, that's awful to me. I mean, I put myself in that girl's position as just maybe having a bad day and somebody taking me out, pulling me out of my car. I mean, who's used to being manhandled like that?
Right. Well,
No,
after-
nobody's been manhandled. I mean, I've never had. Well, I have had it happen before, but I was a little kid and couldn't do anything about it. But I mean, just imagine in your adult life a grown person taking you out of a car and knocking you down and then charging you with the crime. So if you're already depressed because you can't find a job in Chicago, and I'm not saying that that's it, but let's create this hypothetical. If she's depressed, having to move back move to Prairie View, getting a job, you know you don't have any money when you're doing that. You get pulled over with a citation. The officer, and see, I smoked for 30 years, so let me just say this from a smoker standpoint. We smoke when we're nervous. We smoke when we're depressed. We smoke when we're sad. To me, I would probably put a cigarette out if a trooper stopped me, but if I was nervous, I wouldn't. And see, to me, because she didn't just naturally put that cigarette out to get her driver's license or deal with him, she knew that her driver's license wasn't Texas. So once she pulled it, it was going to be an issue, more questions, and that's why she stated her name. And she's nervous. That's why she's not putting it out. She doesn't. She's nervous about what's about to happen now because this officer obviously has an attitude with her, and she got an attitude already. She might have been late to her appointment. You don't know what was going on with her, but to throw somebody in jail for resisting arrest. People are tired of officers assaulting them and then giving them the case, charging them. Her family's not expecting her to be in jail. She can't make contact with anyone. And police officers can hold you 72 hours without filing any charges on you. So you're just stuck there in jail for, that might have sent her over the edge. Because you just don't know where her mind was like anyway. And so for an officer's actions to put somebody in jail because you smiled out and I'm superior to you and I can show you that I have the power to do whatever I want to do, we got to stop that renegade justice. We got to stop it.
And let me say this, and I know we say it all the time. Yes, elected officials have a role, but we as citizens are doing a lot on these cases and bringing our just frustration out because what we know, Vivian and I especially, we've been practicing over 25 years, and at least I have. Vivian, I think you may be a year under me a little too. But the point is this, our clients have been telling us some of these stories for years.
For years.
And we talk about it as colleagues, and they didn't have videotapes, they didn't have cell phones. Sometimes we believed it, quite frankly. Sometimes we were probably like, I don't know about that.
I always believe my clients.
But the bottom line is, these things have been going on for a while.
Teana, hold that thought. Caller, you're on.
Elected officials have a role, but we as citizens are doing a lot on these cases and bringing our frustration out.
Okay, I hear Tina's voice. Is there someone on the phone?
Vivian?
Yes, turn your volume down for me. All the way down, and then talking to your phone. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you now.
I want to comment on what you said about my years of being a law enforcement officer. I have noticed that now there's a lot of suicide that is occurring in the African American community. And I tell you, it's very prevalent, more so than it was in the 80s, because now I guess through family issues, stressors in life, maybe discrimination or disparity in treatment, how people are treated on these jobs, could play a role in how this suicide in African American now has become more prevalent. I just can only recall that I went to a house on a call, a young kid that hung himself from the refrigerator with a belt, and we just couldn't figure out why would he do it, what prompted him to do it, and we searched around, we found a note that said why he had done it. It was based on a relationship, and it was based on a loss of jobs. And move around to the case of Ms. Bland, the law permits you to stop anyone who you observe a traffic offense. She was stopped for failure to signal lane change, which on the Texas traffic code is an arrest offense.
Right.
It's only two offenses that not allow an officer to arrest someone. They're speeding
And
and
insurance.
open container.
Oh, I thought it was insurance.
They added an open container as well.
I thought it was insurance too. No insurance.
But when you stop, you is a custodial. We call it custodial custody. In other words, he has an option to write her a citation or write her a written warning.
Right.
Normally, what happens in the big city, back in the 70s or the 80s, white officers abused that traffic offense would arrest Hispanic and black motorists. So they'll probably put in policies and say, hey, if you're going to arrest a person, you have to notify a sergeant. Now, I don't know if DPS has that policy in place, and perhaps they may not because the troopers work seemingly alone on the highways by themselves a lot. But the whole situation it was bad when it started bad. We used to call it POP when you arrest someone on a simple traffic offense. It's called pissing off the police.
That's basically what she did.
I think she got to the point where you may have overreacted. Historically, DPS, like you say, was always courteous and courteous to the motorists, but they still get a citation. But I think it was more of an overreaction toward this African American female, disrespecting me as a police officer.
Hold on just a second. Now Darrell wants to ask you a question. Go ahead.
Caller, I've heard conflicting stories about how officers are trained in the academy regarding lit cigarettes. Can you speak about if you received any training regarding lit cigarettes by people you encounter?
Well, no, it's no specific training. Most officers may view it as a safety issue, and some may not. The whole thing with this situation, we're trained to, if someone's at 10, we're at 1. If someone's at 10, we're at 1, meaning that if they're argumentative and their behavior is a certain way, we're not going to come with the same behavior. We're going to come in a escalating point. We're going to start at 1, work up to 2, work up to 3.
Right. Yeah, he didn't try to de-escalate the situation at all. In fact, that's what's troubling, I think, to all of us is that on all these videos, especially the one today that we saw in Ohio where that guy was charged with murder, I mean, these officers are ratcheting it up so fast. I mean, I'm sure that man sound in the red outfit, he sounded nervous talking to that officer.
Yes.
He looked like, I don't know whether I should try to bend down to try to get my ID. I think he might have had it and just gave up because he seemed like he didn't want to reach up under the seat and really look for it.
Sure.
And so it just seems like, well, I'll give you my name and you can just look me up because, he's obviously clear and he's not loud, he's not aggressive, he had a calm voice, a nervous almost sounding voice to me, like he was a little nervous. And I thought that officer ratcheted that up so fast until he killed him and then wrote a conflict report.
One thing I don't like to get
Who
into
is it, Smokey?
Quarterback. Yes.
Okay.
One thing I don't like to get into is quarterbacking the scene. I don't know the variables and what made him come to that level. And most officers that's been around a long time, we don't try to quarterback what happens out there unless the evidence, some information, videos, or whatever come out, and we see some of the mistakes that the officer may have made. So, like I said, we don't try to quarterback those scenes.
Right, you don't. But look, have you seen that? Have you seen that video from Ohio yet?
Yeah, I saw a little on CNN today when they indicted the officer.
Well, I'm just saying, I didn't want to look at it, but I did look at it online right before I came. And, because the body cam is moving, you can't see everything from that angle, but you know that the guy is complying. Right. That's one thing that you do know, Smokey. He's complying. There's no reason for him to go to get shot.
Well, Smokey, what I don't understand is why are they prolonging the purpose of the stop? One of the things the officer said in that Ohio video was, you suspended, right? Your license is suspended. And he's like, no. And he kept going on and on.
He's badgering him. He's like trying
prolonging it. Right, why is that?
Go check him out. Go to your
roadside. And the officer's going to actually question. She's going to actually question to see if you will and listen to the truth from the motorist.
I guess our point of view, Smokey, but our point of view is this. No one has to talk to you. All a motorist has to do is give you your name and identification. You can give them a ticket, and then they can go and look at their computer or call dispatch. But nobody has to talk to anybody. Everybody has a constitutional right to remain silent, and so that's why we're having a problem with the fact that although we understand what you're doing and we know that your heart is right, there is a prolonged detention. Are they teaching y'all? Are they updating y'all on the rules as they're coming out? That's what we want to know. Because a Supreme Court case has come out today.
We have legal updates every other year during the legislative sessions.
Okay, so you
But
haven't
the
had,
thing
so
is-
y'all haven't gone through the Rodriguez case then this year that re-emphasizes what the law was in the 80s and 90s. It
Right.
hadn't been in the last 20 years because the Supreme Courts have just allowed the police officers to say and do whatever they want. But they're going back to basics now, and they're talking about the prolonged purpose of the stop. If you can't play like or say or smell marijuana or see another crime, there's no reason for prolonged detention. And that's to try to make...
I'm familiar with the Rodriguez case. You can't probe it into other issues unless there's probable cause to do so.
Especially when you know you're going to ratchet it up. I mean, you got to study that video and put yourself, not just as a cop, not just as a lawyer. I put myself as in the place of that guy. Obviously, he told the guy his front,
And that's what it was. The front
license plate was right there. He showed it to him. And so if that's the only reason, obviously it fell off.
That's it.
And so you got to go get a screw if it falls out. Thank you that he picked it up and didn't just leave it in the street. And so he showed it to him. You can see him showing it to him. You see he's nervous. You see, he's telling him, well, this car, he's already looked him up. This car is registered to Sandra Bland or Sam. He said, yeah, that's my wife. And so, I mean, he's already looked him up. He's ready to profile. I mean, he's ready to...
He's picking on him.
He's picking on the
He's
guy.
picking on him.
And so what are you supposed to do when somebody picks on you? What we're saying is that we have to have a truce with the law enforcement. People are nervous right now. So just everybody needs to stay in their lane. If it's a traffic stop, do a traffic stop. Until you get to promote it to be a homicide detective or a robbery detective, when you can go into more probing. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's not your job. And check this out, Smokey. He was a university police officer.
Really?
So he wasn't even a regular traffic cop. He's a university police officer.
The university has the same. They have the same.
We're not saying that. We're not saying that they don't. We're not saying that they don't, Smokey. I know you personally. I know you've been at 3 law enforcement agencies, but I know that they try to work together like, we're going to do this part, you're going to do that part. We understand it. We're not saying he doesn't have the right to do it, but we're saying if his intentions are honorable and he's doing what we, the taxpayers, are paying him for, he saw where his license plate was. So
that should have been it.
That should have been it. Either give him a ticket because it fell off, or let him go. You don't need to be asking him, do you have anything illegal? You don't need to go to that point. You don't need, just leave him alone. That's what we're saying.
Just remember, race always plays a factor, okay?
Well, that doesn't make it right at all, Smokey. That's the point.
It may not make it right, but we can't. I mean, as a law enforcement officer, I mean, we have to just wake up and realize that in this country, race still plays a factor when it comes to traffic stops.
And that's the bias and that's the discretion that leaves us with situations like we have.
Well, Smokey, we know that you do a good job, and we would love for you to come on one night and sit at the table, but we're going to hang up with you right now so we can move on.
Okay.
But I appreciate you. Love you. Bye-bye.
And until officers come out, like Smokey just gave us that piece, until officers come out and tell us the truth.
I know the truth.
You know, and I wish they would do that. My mother told me when I was a kid, you run from the cops, you will be beat.
Right.
Cops need to come out and tell you. You run from us, when we catch you, it's going to be some problems.
We're going to whoop your ass.
Yeah.
Just don't tell the truth.
Just tell the truth so people know how to act. This is not a restaurant. It's not customer service. You don't talk to me crazy or I'm going to mess you up. You know, if they would come out and say things like that, then maybe people's attitude would change, but people still believe that they're there to protect and serve. We pay their salaries. It's customer service. They should be courteous to us. People honestly believe that, and unfortunately, that's not what you get on the side of the road.
And it's a different time. You have to say we're in the time of me too. YouTube, me, videos. So as long as my family is safe, I don't really care what's going on with your family. So we can look at this on TV and not really care, because what's happening to the little black girl in the yellow bikini would never happen to my child. What's happening to Sandra Bland would never happen to my child or me. But I think that because it's happening so more, even the selfish generation of my daughter's generation is realizing, hell, this could happen to me. Right. And that's why they're finally starting to wake up and create these Justice for All young people coalitions, realizing that it can happen to them, even though they're college kids, they're trying to do the right thing. Smokey, what we're trying to say in viewers is that the purpose of laws, our state legislators and the Supreme Court, is to give citizens clarification, give us notice of what the law is. All of us, not just cops, all of us, because we all pay to play together in this society and we all want the same rights. Right now, it's like, what are citizens' rights? I say that almost every night, don't I, Teana?
Yep.
What are our rights? Because what's written is one thing, but what's our rights are another thing. And we want officers to answer that, because if we get more honest officers, as you said, Darrell, like Smokey, you ain't talking the language we want you to talk, but you're telling the truth.
Right.
And because what are our rights? His perception, being in law enforcement for over 30 years, is slanted to the police. And it's not about our rights. It's what the police have a right to do under color of authority. But we've got to have clearer definitions, which gets us back to who our local politicians are. Because remember, viewers, the mayor appoints the police chief.
Yeah,
and our police chief, McClellan, is very good right now, appointed by Mayor Parker, but he's been silenced by his boss, I believe. He's never told me that. This is just my opinion. He's been on this show and answered our questions freely. But I believe during the last year and a half on these racial profiling and unfair traffic stops, he's been silenced. We want to ask these mayors at all these candidate forums that they're having, what type of police chief are you going to have, and are you going to make sure that they conduct traffic stops fairly among black and white people, teenagers?
One of the first questions, this tells you the value, this tells you how the police officers value us, or they do not value us. When Sheriff Garcia went to deputies went out to Lone Star College and arrested the victim who was shot, and then when the DA's office did their investigation, released him 3 days later, dismissed the case, and he refused to apologize. I mean, who does that? I mean, so he doesn't value or has no respect for the people. He's not willing to come forward and say, we made a mistake, we're sorry. Now, if that had been somebody else's kid.
A white kid, say it right.
Yeah, if that had been a white kid.
This is truth and justice.
Okay. If that had been a white kid, I mean, that would have been
the first
major.
thing, apology.
And so he has the nerve to now run for mayor and have that on his background.
And let me tell you what's deep. Garcia is a very nice man. I've climbed a mountain with him in Denver. He's a very nice man, a very ethical man, a very honorable man. But as you know, as a becoming politician, me too, trying, he has a PR team. And I'm sure, he didn't tell me this, but I'm sure a PR team said, you're not going to apologize because you're going to lose those conservatives because you want to be mayor one day. And so I believe in his heart he wanted to apologize. This is just me thinking that. But I believe he couldn't because his PR team, and that's what's wrong with our politicians, everything they do is about what their PR team tells them to do.
Except Donald Trump.
Except Donald Trump.
And Boris Miles.
But I was on ABC with Crossroads. He had a PR person with him.
Oh, really?
Boris had a PR person, just like everybody else. No, he did, and Donald Trump does too. He just probably has one that does what he says.
Exactly.
Make PR being my way, and it's working right now.
It is.
PR being my way, even though it's crazy. So what I'm telling you is that I think that his PR people said, you can't apologize to that black person because white people who you want to vote for you, white conservatives, do not value that black kid's life. But I bet he wanted to. But I do appreciate Ohio because that DA came out and acted like that black life mattered.
Right.
He acted like it. I have never, I talk about people who act like that black lives don't matter, but I have to admit, next time if I'm allowed to, next time I change my little opening, I got to put that man's face on my opening because he acted like black lives mattered. He acted like that was, it was a colorblind as to who the victim was based on what he said.
Exactly.
And he just said all the right things.
Yeah,
and I think that because of his attitude and his leadership, you're going to get a conviction in that case.
The paradigm has changed on how to handle these issues and what's acceptable. And me as a young person who never lived through a protest period, all this protesting is new to me. And I saw the power in the civil rights movement having a degree in history, but present day I had never seen it, never understood it. But now I see the results of protesting. It causes people now, these DAs, these police chiefs, to act faster. And they want to get it out there. Let's get out in front of this and make something happen. Let the people know that we care and we are paying attention because our city may be burned down. So people are, they're coming out and they're showing. They have to show now.
Right.
It's unacceptable.
And I don't know the dynamics and the cultural makeup of that city in Ohio, but I mean, most places that would be kind of political suicide to be that vehement about someone's life. And for him to have done that, I mean, he's my hero. You know, he's my hero for the week. I don't know his name, but I'm gonna learn his name. I just saw it right before I came here tonight. But he's my hero for the week.
No. I
What do
agree.
you think, Teana?
I think he did a great job. Cincinnati is a very urban city in Ohio.
Oh, it's Cincinnati? Okay, yeah. I
yes.
used to be engaged to a guy from Cincinnati. It's mostly Italian. At least it was back in the 70s.
They have a pretty significant African American population.
But I don't think it's higher than ours.
No, probably not.
It's not higher than ours.
And I do want to say Chief McCullen did do an op-ed of some sort in the Chronicle, Chron.com. I did see it, actually. I put it on my Facebook. And he did say the DPS officer's actions were outrageous and should not have occurred. So he has spoken up on that point.
Yeah, and he has the right attitude. You know, I would like to see him continue to be the police chief under a different administration that allows him to be the police chief and be independent.
And who would that mayor be? He impressed me when he went and testified during the Chad Holly trial.
Yeah.
And he said that those actions were bad. And then when he walked out of the courtroom, he said that the charge official oppression should be upgraded to a felony. And then so I expected somebody to file the legislation and for him to be there testifying, and I never heard anything else about it. And, you know...
You probably want to finish his term.
Yeah, we have to get to the point where we are okay with politicians giving us the truth. Can we really handle the truth? Right now, politicians tell us what we want to hear. I want to hear the truth. And so...
Well, I think some politicians tell us the truth that are in the minority, when they represent the minority community. The problem is, what do they say when they don't represent the minority community, when they're in the majority community and they have to talk that Donald Trump rhetoric? And unfortunately, that part of the community is the boss of the Texas legislature, you know, that conservative thing. So we have about 15 minutes, so let's talk a little bit about body cams. Teana, how do you think a body cam would have impacted the Sandra Bland stop?
Well, we see that the dash cam video is what we are able to determine what happened. Body cam, probably not much more, not much differently.
Now, let me tell you why I'm thinking that, just to kind of throw you where I am. The dash cam, he was able to pull her away from it.
That's true.
And see, with a body cam, I don't know how good the view will be if it's you too close to him. But
Exactly.
whatever happened on whether it was a resisting arrest, I think we would have had a better picture because they can at least slow it down. You know, if it happens so fast and it's kind of muffled in front of him, I think that, you know, slowing down a body cam video of that altercation would have shown that in a body cam had it not been turned off. And that's why we have to have policies that the officers cannot turn them off. As soon as they effectuate that stop, it needs to roll the whole time that they're out there on that stop until the person is in handcuffs or whatever.
But I think speed's important because in the Ohio case, I think that is a body cam.
It
And
is.
after the altercation, all you just see is a bunch of
And that's why I'm saying
jumbling
that
up, and then
we're
you
seeing
hear the
that
gun.
now.
Correct.
But I believe that for them to file charges, they slowed it down. And I'm throwing
Sure.
in my editorial to what I
Sure.
saw, because I saw the video before I came, but it's speeding up. So like what Smokey was saying, you can't really tell it. But I'm doing the legalese part of
Sure.
it. I'm sure that the district attorney's office slowed that dash cam down so you could go, because you can take a dash camera, well, any kind of camera,
Sure.
and slow it down and make stills of what happened.
Right.
So I'm sure by the time they slowed it down, they saw exactly what took place.
Sure.
And that's just not what we're seeing, because we're seeing the fast version
Sure.
of it.
Sure.
Because it happened real
Sure.
quickly. And they also know that he lied and said that the guy drug him. That's what it's my
Exactly.
understanding. The officer said that black guy drug him out of the car or drug
Right.
him around the car or something like that.
Right.
And that slowing down of that dash cam, although we can't see it, I believe that when that goes to trial, or maybe even in the poll of public opinion, it might be slowed down to be shown. But I know in trial it's going to be slow.
Sure.
It's going to be in slow motion.
Well, I think the more evidence we have, the better for these circumstances, because unfortunately, it's not getting any better. Unfortunately, people are being targeted, people are being victims and victimized, and we need to see. I think America wants to see it. We have social media, we have YouTube, we have all these sources, 24/7 news cycles. We want to see it. So sure.
Yeah.
What do you think about the body cam, Darrell?
Well, first, I want to say thank you to the hundreds of officers who do their job correctly and don't beat people when you arrest them. You know, because we all have clients who come in that we're not beaten.
Yes.
And we don't talk about those. So thank you for being willing to stand up and do what's right. But along with body cams, I think they need to have a higher quality dash cam. You know, I have a GoPro camera that is maybe 4 inches wide, 2 inches tall. And, you know, it gives me a wide angle, you know, because I drive my little sports car and I put the camera up and I record when we go riding. And so they have the ability and the technology now to give a wider view. And, you know, the camera was $4.99. And so, I mean, yes, there's a cost for storage of this data, but I think all of that, you can't put a price on somebody's life. You can't put a price on having citizens trust law enforcement. That is why no one believes anything out of Waller. That is why people don't believe anything anywhere these days, because trust has deteriorated and there's too many things happening daily, weekly. Now, if something happens, you have to get, I'm dealing with the McKinney case and they don't even talk about that anymore. Nobody mentions that. You get 1 week now before another tragedy. 1 week. Sandra Bland, that came out last Monday. Now it's on to something else.
Well,
And
we're
so
on to the
it's sad.
Ohio case. It's an older case, but now they released the video and the charges.
Sure,
So
that's right.
yeah. Let's talk about, before we wrap it up, so the body cams, I will continue to reiterate, we need policies to go with them. Otherwise, we're just wasting a lot of money if the officers can turn them on and off.
Sure.
The dash cams are helpful, but when the officers do something, they move you out of the way. Now, some law enforcement says that's the policy, to get you away, to put you in a secure place. But we know he took her out of that dash cam so you wouldn't see what happened. And even though she got charged with resisting arrest, there was no reason to arrest her, and he pulled her out and threatened to light her up and tase her.
That's right.
But for no reason, just because you're mad at her and you're going to show her something. Now, remember, the mental health component came up a few years ago, because without videos, we knew that mentally retarded people or mentally ill people were being shot. And so a lot of law enforcement agencies created first responders who had that type of training. Correct. And so officers, as part of it, need to know a little bit about people who are having a bad day and to stay courteous and professional to make sure that everything's okay before just doing that. You know, don't you think? And so the mental health component, we can't get away, because you don't know I'm sure that if that officer has a heart at all, he didn't mean to, he thought she was just a big old black woman that could take a risk, resisting arrest, because he lost his temper. But now he ought to feel bad that she might have killed herself behind that. I see we have a phone call. Caller, you're on. Please turn your volume all the way down and talk into your phone.
Fine, thank you. I wanted to ask a question. I live in Missouri City, and I was out at Walmart over on Highway 6 Saturday morning, and the car ahead of me, the young lady and a young man, was going to make a turn into one of the parking lanes, and the front tire broke. Something happened to it, so they couldn't move forward any further. I was able to go around them, but unfortunately, they were blocking several people that had parked already. And I didn't see that as any major thing. They could have called a record and moved it. But 6 Missouri City policemen come out there. 6 police cars. And they treated those people like, they were criminals. The young girl, they pulled out the car and handcuffed her. She kept yelling, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. Why are you doing this to me? Now, we innocent bystanders. It just made me feel helpless to watch them, the way they went about this. And they put her in a car. They blocking everybody, 6 of them. And I just stood there and I started to think to myself, what in the heck's going on with these policemen? A young, unarmed guard.
Thank you.
Beg pardon?
Okay,
my question is this. Where do we call to report such things?
I would have you can call the non-emergency number to do that, or with 6 police officers, you might need to call 911 and ask for a supervisor to be dispatched to that scene, because it looks like they have half the officers out at the scene that need to be patrolling Missouri City. Correct. So some supervisor needs to know that they need to, bring them in. But you also need to make sure that you're going to, who your mayor is personally. You go to the meetings, and that you find out who the police chief is through the mayor, because they appoint the police chief, to ask for policies to be fair. One of the things as concerned citizens we have to do more of is know the hierarchy and who reports to who, and stop just throwing out what you think it is, okay? As in our profession, we get so tired of people telling us, I need to talk to the judge, I need to talk to the judge. You can't talk to the judge, it's illegal. That's why you have a lawyer. The judge is the referee. It's just like playing football and you want to talk to the referee. Well, you better be playing the game so they can referee what's going on between the two people. So I appreciate you trying to find out who you need to contact.
As well as a city council person.
And your city council person can also advocate for you.
Yeah, and also, you know, if you can find a safe position to be out of the way,
record it.
Turn your video camera on, because these days the videos, they're the things that are going to change people, get people getting caught on tape. I'm sure now in the daily briefing, or at least weekly, they are bringing up, beware of cameras.
To these officers.
Yeah, always act as if a camera is on you. And so when you see something that ridiculous and you were there from the beginning and you know that their car simply broke down and 6 officers responded, one, that's a waste of money. Right. You know,
Sure
for six officers out there, then they're taking away business from that whatever company you were at, and so
well,
so
and
many
let's think
wrong.
about this again. Handcuffed? I hope never to be handcuffed in my life. And this little young woman is being handcuffed and being treated like that by a police officer. I mean, I think about the fact that I hope an officer never puts handcuffs on me. I don't want to be caged like an animal.
Well, in total disregard for the shoppers at Walmart, 6 cars just blocking every direction. You couldn't move. You would think they had a robbery that just went down.
Yeah.
And it was just a young lady in distress. Yeah.
Correct.
And I just didn't understand that. Where the training? Instead of going into the background of these victims, they need to go into the background of some of these people they're hiring on the police force.
I agree with you. Thank you for calling, caller.
Thank you very much.
We're going to take another call. Caller, turn your volume down and ask your question, please. Oh, he's gone. Okay, sorry, we missed it.
But that's part of the problem, is the correlation with what was going on and the aggression and the activity of the officers. That's exactly what we're talking about here. A car broke down and 6 officers take it upon themselves to not only go out to the scene, but put a young lady in handcuffs in the back of a car.
And the thing is, as a citizen, like the caller said, he feels helpless, because wouldn't it have been great if he could have gotten out of the car and say, wait a minute, officers, the car broke down, but if he'd have gone there, they'd have been aggressive with him. They would have said, get back.
Interfering.
They'd have been charged with interfering for the duties. For what? And their duties is to try to help somebody on the side of the road. They're not arresting anybody. But I don't want to be in handcuffs unless I'm arrested. That caller might have called back. Please turn your volume down and make your comment, please.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Make a comment, please.
Yes, I am commenting on the young lady that was arrested. I think that most of them were in the wrong. Okay. I think that the officers should have known her situation and just be cool and say, hey, well, what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to let you mellow out and write you up a ticket and go on your way. But I don't think that the officer was trained enough to know most of the ladies, most women situations, because there's a lot of women do, you know, talk loud to other people.
Especially me calling.
Sometimes a lot of women.
Okay, caller, thank you for calling. I hate to cut you off, but thank you for calling. So we have 3 minutes, and I want to give my panel an opportunity to wrap up. I'm going to start with you, Darrell.
I just tell people, if you go back and watch the original Sandra Bland video from March, and one thing she points out that people aren't talking about is the importance of mental health issues in the black community, and they're not getting enough attention. And so I hope after all of this is wrapped up, that will be her legacy, if you will, because she put the call out there for more attention for mental health issues in our black community. We still have kids with mental health issues who we are whooping. You know, not medicating, but we're just giving spankings. Act right. And so we need to realize that that is a true issue and that needs to be addressed just as if it was a heart issue or a broken leg.
Okay. But people in official capacities, and even banking on what the last caller said, that she was mouthing off and so on, they have a responsibility. She could have been wrong, but her wrong could never result in someone being in jail or someone getting arrested. So that's what official oppression is. He had the power and he used it and was wrong. She may have been wrong. Same thing, yes, she actually disclosed her mental illness to the Waller County officials. My understanding is she talked about that she had a prior suicide. So officially, the Waller County officials that had her in their custody should have acted upon that, should have seen that and done something. So Waller County is at fault, in my opinion, in not paying attention to her disclosing her mental illness. Yes, I agree, Ms. Bland, you know, she was significant on many parts, and that's one of them, because she didn't hide it. She talked about it. But our officials should have the responsibility, if someone talks about it, to act on it, and they failed her in that regard.
And my comment, again, is like both of you are saying, is about the mental health issue, because I think that sometimes when you're Black, people don't care about your mental health issues. Now, we have our own issues internally, but sometimes people just don't care. I mean, I know I was raised with a father with severe schizophrenia. It was ignored. You know, it affects the children. And I do talk loud, probably from that environment. And we're very judgmental in our community, but we're not real helpful. And then when law enforcement is there, I think they should know that, to me, like I said, if she's smoking that cigarette and she's seeming a little bit nervous and odd and he's just trying to control her, he should have realized there's something else going on with her. It appeared that way to me as a former smoker. Mm-hmm. And so if she's saying that she has a mental health issue, you're supposed to be triaged when you go into any jail. You're supposed to know if you need medicine. They have a responsibility not to let you not have your diabetes medicine, mental health medicine, or whatever it is. And to realize also, we've got to put a push with our law enforcement on using, first of all, better judgment, but second of all, more PR bonds. Because there's no reason in the world, if she didn't have a record or much of a record, that something that started so little with the probable cause of a failure to signal lane change that turns into a resisting, sounds suspicious, why couldn't you give her a bond?
Right.
Why are you going to let her sit in jail by herself and not try to and know she's from somewhere else because she's filled out her blotter, right, and they're trying to say that she was belligerent, but I understand from you that her blotter looked perfectly fine. She filled out her paperwork very well.
Sure.
And so why treat someone like that just because you can? To me, that just shows that Black women are always aggressive. We're the enemy. You know, we can't ever be weak, sad, need some help.
The victim.
We can't ever be the victim. We can't be someone that somebody can say, oh, wow. You know, we have to, I can't be perceived that way. I have to be perceived as, you know, hard. But she might have been hard because she was trying to hide mental health. And so I think we need to be more sensitive to that, and I agree with you, that should be her legacy, if anything else, that we should all be more sensitive towards one another and always be our brothers and sisters keepers. Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King, and we will talk about something stimulating and interesting next week. The Sandra Bland case, as far as we're concerned tonight, is closed. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in again. Tonight we have something really good, a hot topic in the news this week. He's been charged with crime. This is a show where I try to educate.